together. There we go. Okay. Going live on all the platforms. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday. My name is Will Critchlow, founder and CEO at SearchPilot. And if you're new to these, I try and do these live streams. Try and do them every week. Often at this time on a Tuesday, sometimes other days. And generally aiming for this kind of time. And just talking about some topic that's a kind of bigger thing I want to cover, and a few other bits and pieces around things I've been reading, listening to, or discovering during the week. And if there's a topic that you've got particular questions around, or that you'd be particularly interested in having me cover, please just drop me a note. I'm pretty easy to find. My email address is very easy to guess, first name, not last name. And I'm at Will Critchlow on Twitter and LinkedIn. DM's open in both places. And speaking of which, that's where I live stream, to my Twitter, to my LinkedIn, and to the SearchPilot YouTube account, all of which should be pretty easy to find for anybody who works in search, which is probably many of you, because what we do at SearchPilot is that we help very large websites run experiments to see what Google and other search engines are going to prefer. And these kind of SEO tests are critical, in my opinion, for large websites. So we're thinking e-commerce, travel, real estate, jobs, media, listings, local, any of these kind of areas. Google is just getting increasingly harder to understand, increasingly hard to operate from best practices, or from, historically, this is how we've done things. It's harder and harder to get those results. And it's harder and harder to prove that you've got those results when you get them. And grown up large organizations require that kind of accountability and transparency. And that's a lot of what we're going to be talking about today. I want to talk about turning SEO into the channel you always wished it could be, which is a little bit more dollars in and dollars out than we've kind of, I think, been used to. For most big websites that I come across, organic search is the biggest channel for new customer acquisition. Certainly that's true for most e-commerce retailers, but it's frustratingly opaque and often the hardest channel to understand or to improve. And so I think we're going to talk a little bit today about how you can extend the work that most folks are doing in experimentation in other channels, how they can extend that work into organic search, turn organic search into the accountable, measurable growth channel that you always wished it could be. I've been talking to this a little bit with CMOs and SVPs of marketing recently, and finding that a lot of folks are intrigued by this idea of bringing the kind of accountability and performance to organic search that you'd normally expect of paid media channels. What I'm really trying to get to is that it is now possible to enable your digital leaders to have those dashboards that show the actual business impact of individual SEO initiatives on site. And that lets you drive performance. It lets you hold folks accountable. It lets you set targets that senior leadership actually cares about, that aren't just techie, geeky things that the SEO team themselves care about. And ultimately, what we're looking for here is improved performance and improved narratives. And that's what big businesses basically function on, right? So this is what we're trying to achieve. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about some of those, some of the tactics that lead into that, and how that all fits together. Maybe before we get into that, we'll talk a little bit about some stuff that's been I've been reading, or that I've been thinking about this week. I came across a very good episode of the folks might be familiar with Lenny's podcast. If you're not, then I would highly recommend checking it out. Actually, let me just share my screen a minute, and then you can see what I'm talking about. So there we go. This is the episode that I'm talking about, a framework for finding product market fit. This is particularly of interest to anyone who, like me, who works in the SaaS space, particularly in enterprise software as a service. But I thought this was really excellent. This chap, Todd Jackson, is a VC now, but has a lot of experience as an operator, and has essentially been working on a way to operationalize the process of going from basic or no product market fit through the different stages to what I think he calls extreme product market fit, which sounds pretty cool. And I think I'd love to get to that point. I think we're classified as being in one of the middle stages at that kind of 20, 25 people, few $1 million in ARR, that kind of level. So Anyway, good episode. Highly recommend it. I can't remember if I recommended it on, I think I did actually on a previous one of these discussions, but I have been enjoying quite a few of these episodes recently. And I think I mentioned the one with Claire Vaux, which was a few weeks ago. I've got that one in my backlog to listen to, the Annie Duke one, former professional poker player. We've been talking about this a little bit internally at SearchPilot, this idea of thinking in bets, which is her book, is a very interesting concept. But yeah, so the Claire Vaux episode was I found particularly fascinating. This was the one that a lot of the stuff that I've been talking about around speed and pace and improving the clock speed of an organization. And yeah, moving from, we should do that this year to we should do it this quarter. We should move from this quarter to this month to this week. And one of the things I've been banging on about internally at SearchPilot is there's obviously some kind of trade-off. There's the classic faster, better, cheaper axes. Pick two at most. And I've been trying to turn that on its head a little bit and say, I want faster and better, but I'm prepared to do less to sacrifice to get that. And so it's not just about working harder. It's about saying, okay, let's have more focus. Let's be more specific and deliberate in what we choose to do. But once we've chosen those smaller set of things, let's do them faster, more aggressively, and better. So yeah, we'll see how that all plays out and see what folks have to say about that. Another thing I've just literally been reading today, although this tweet was a few days ago, was this email. So Barbara Peng is the CEO at Business Insider, and I thought this was a very interesting take on what's going on in the media landscape, which is something that I've been thinking a lot about recently. We've got some customers in this space, and I know a lot of folks who work in this area, and of course it's the flip side. They're on the sharp end of a lot of the stuff that I've been talking about from a Google lens recently. So all of the AI overviews, the growth of ChatGPT, the strategic questions around, should you do partnerships with these folks? Should you give them access to your content? Should you open up your paywall? How do all of those kind of things tie together? And when you see bumps in the road, do they correlate or do they foretell the way that things are moving in a bigger picture? So, a bump in organic traffic, the drop in organic traffic, does that mean that you're falling out of favor? Does that mean your strategy is wrong? Or is it a more tactical challenge that you can pick up the slack with tactical improvements? And it's been so muddied, right? Because we've got this huge AI revolution going on at the same time as we've got much more tactical changes from Google. So not the AI overview stuff, but things like the helpful content update or the, what do they call it? The reputation abuse penalty, I want to say. So some of these things have affected large publishers as well as small. And I think some of the most egregious effects have been on small publishers. That's not so much where I work these days. I'm not the expert. I'm not the best person to talk to that. I would probably recommend following Lily Ray. Has done some excellent exposure, given some excellent exposure to folks who've been impacted at the smaller end of the market. Where I understand more is the big picture, big website end of things. And to that end, I was very interested to see this analysis from the leader at Business Insider, who calls out that it's been a punishing time for the media industry. And I was worried I was reading a layoff email, which it doesn't seem to be. I don't know whether there's other stuff going on internally, but talks about volatility in traffic from Google, which is interesting. This changing mindset. So Google moving from being a helpful librarian who organizes and prioritizes content towards this more, force themselves more into the narrative. So as they seek to disrupt themselves and compete with ChatGPT, talking about them being in the way. And this potentially meaning that there isn't money to be made. So they at Business Insider have done this deal with OpenAI, with ChatGPT, and they're actively working to create mutually beneficial partnerships with Google and others. So we'll see what that turns out to mean. I'm more interested in the more strategic layer of this. So they know that they can't rely on external referrals as a significant driver of traffic for the long term, that they want to build relationships with their readers. I think, sure, building relationships with their readers is going to be critical, I suspect it is a long time before any of those things are the dominant channel for them. And so they're going to need to continue to somehow keep a foot in both camps and build that loyalty in parallel with building the referral model. But they want to be a habit, focus on habitual engagement, and they've got some KPIs that they talk about. So their North Star metric being number of people who spend 2 or more days a week on the site, which they're ahead of. They've got this AI-powered smart paywall. Love to know what that is. Everything's AI-powered these days. Don't know if you've noticed, including SearchPilot. SearchPilot has an AI-powered analysis engine, and we're working on some interesting R&D stuff in that area as well. And their brand side of things is apparently going well as well. So that they are apparently on track financially, but are calling out that this is a difficult path ahead. And I was very interested to read this. I think the narrative that is most interesting to those of us who don't work in media but do interact with this space and particularly work with the Google side of things is this changing changing view of Google's relationship with the industry. And I think this is going to be an increasingly small p political theme that we see in the coming weeks and months, that Google in particular is going to have to figure out how to message and navigate their changing relationship with the folks who produce the content that they rely on. And they've always had a slightly different relationship here than the other big platforms, Facebook in particular, Twitter to a lesser extent, well, Facebook and Twitter to a large extent, Instagram to a less extent. Instagram and YouTube are much more of a native creator economy, right? You create for those platforms, or you post to those platforms deliberately. Twitter and Facebook, newsfeed type Facebook, much more reliant on links, I think Twitter especially. Whereas Google has always had this more symbiotic relationship where, as Barbara calls out, the essentially an understanding that if a publisher is helpful to Google's audience, Google will send traffic. And I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see how this changes with premium subscription ChatGPT in the mix, premium and other chat LLMs, with Google's increasing incorporation of AI and so forth. The relationship is changing. And I think if there's one thing that we've seen with technological shifts over time, it's that you can't hold back that tide. And so folks definitely need to figure out where things are going and how to align themselves to win in the world that is emerging. I definitely don't claim to have all or necessarily even any of those answers yet, but it's definitely something I'm going to be spending more time thinking about. And I think we're all going to find ourselves talking about this a great deal in the months to come. So the biggest thing that I wanted to talk about today, as I said at the top, was this idea of turning SEO into the channel you always wished it could be. And this is actually a bit of a sneak preview of a presentation that I plan to give at eTail in London next week. In fact, this time next week, next Tuesday. And I thought I would try it out here to get some feedback and share it more broadly with my audience as well. And so what I'm really talking about here is saying, I think there's a number of ways that organic search and SEO have got a bad rap in the enterprise in particular. And obviously for an e-tail market, this is talking particularly about the retail, e-commerce space. And so a sneak preview, I'm going to talk at the end of this. I previously announced that we've started working with Marks & Spencer, and a big chunk of this at the end is going to be tying that together. But one of the ways that organic search has had a bad rap is everybody gets focused on the new shiny thing. And we think TikTok is the future. Once upon a time, Instagram and Twitter were the future. Right now, ChatGPT is the future. And that can be both true and downplay the size and scale of the organic search opportunity. And this research that Rand at Spartoro published in partnership with Datos, don't know how you pronounce that, showed, this is like 63% of referrers from big websites come from Google. Add in the other search engines in the list and you're getting over 70%. It's wild how much of the web's traffic comes from search and from Google, which is obviously the behemoth here, almost 10 times larger than the next biggest. And I think this is underappreciated, even among folks who intellectually know it. The other way that it gets played badly, I think, is it just historically hasn't been taken as seriously in organizations. I've heard from senior leaders at publicly traded companies whose referral traffic looks like this, that they don't have targets for organic search. They have targets for digital as a whole. They have targets for their paid media channels, but they're not holding their organic search team to account, and they're not measuring performance, and they're not driving organic search performance to forecast targets and goals, which is quite mind-blowing, really. And from what I see, too much SEO reporting kind of sounds a little bit like astrology. There's, Venus rising and all these different things going on, and we get this caveat and this explanation, and if we draw a line all the way from here to there, we get to see that this line looks like that line, and this is so far removed and disconnected from real business metrics and outcomes that I'm amazed that honestly it's continued this long, and that we've continued discovering in very large, otherwise sophisticated organizations that have strong revenue leaders, P&L owners, strong targets in other areas, this complete lack of accountability in the organic search channel too often. And this is, I think, sometimes at the root of organizations turning around and saying, and we're suddenly blown away by the lack of, by the volatility, the unpredictability, or the lack of performance of the channel. So what I think is wanted really is to have this channel perform with the accountability and performance of paid media channels. And I'm banging a repeated drum here, but what I think that means is being able to tie those individual initiatives, those individual on-site changes, to the outcomes and crucially the business outcomes that they drive. And this is a big thing that we're focused on. So taking a little kind of sidestep for a second into the MBA. Some of you, if you were at MozCon, you might have heard me talk about this, but I have a theory that connects the future of SEO to changes that we've already seen in professional sports, particularly basketball, which is the sport I happen to know best. And we can see this in the shot chart. So this is an NBA shot chart showing a kind of heat map of where the most common and frequent shots are taken from. And what we see on screen here is three distinct areas. There's the shots taken around the rim, around the rim. Those are the dunks and layups, high percentage shots. There's the shots from outside the arc. These are 3-point shots. These are worth more. And there's the mid-range. So essentially everything in between. But I'm actually slightly misleading you here. This shot chart is not actually today's game. This is what the game looked like in 2001. So well over 20 years ago. And let's just look at side by side what the shot chart looks like in 2001 versus today. It's nuts. Like, look at that difference. And side by side, it's really an incredible change. So what's going on? Why did this happen? Well, what happened is the rise of analytics and individual tracking of players, along with a bunch of machine learning and artificial intelligence to collect detailed statistics and build models and regression and machine learning and et cetera, to be able to understand actually what are the right tactics and how can we be more effective. And what the big discovery really was that this mid-range shot is almost as hard as a 3-point shot, but worth 2 points. And only the two kinds of shot are really worth it at the elite level. These ones are the ones that are easy enough to be worthwhile. So dunks and layups around the rim, you make enough of those to be worth taking them, even though they're only worth 2 points a go. And the 3-point shots are harder, for sure, but they're worth more, so they're worth it. And these mid-range shots are often the wrong choice. So back to SEO. What's the equivalent? What's the SEO analytics revolution? Well, my view, and the reason why I'm investing the next phase of my life's work in SEO testing, is winning tests are really the dunks of the SEO world. They are incremental gains, incremental improvements. They are highly likely to scale and to be beneficial. And the other side of the tactic, if you're building an SEO strategy today, is building out new content, new pages, new site sections. This is harder and potentially is worth a lot. Not what today's presentation is about. But what we should be doing is we should be cutting out these seemingly attractive, but actually surprisingly low percentage shots, which in my somewhat tortuous analogy are the untested changes to the website for SEO purposes. So these are the changes that you think, hope, believe might make a difference, but that you haven't got the detailed evidence for. And so putting all this together, we essentially get the strategy on a page, which is that modern on-site SEO on large websites should cut out untested changes and focus instead on new pages and winning tests. And as I said at the top, we've been lucky enough to be able to announce that we're partnering with Marks & Spencer to power their SEO experimentation. And what I wanted to emphasize here as we talk about how to build the channel we've always wished for is that this is really in conjunction with and powering user experience. So we're lucky enough to have this great quote on the website from Liv, who is the head of digital marketing delivery at Marks & Spencer, that talking about the, I want to just particularly call out that this is all about enhancing the overall site experience for their customers. And I don't think that's always how on-site SEO has been seen in e-commerce, in retail, in large organizations in general. Too often it's been intention. So what I've seen and heard is over the 20 odd years now that I've been in SEO consulting, I have often heard this kind of concern of, you pick up the phone, it's the client saying, I'm concerned that this SEO change you're proposing is going to hurt my conversion rate, my user experience. And that is obviously a valid, real concern. And there is a tension there sometimes between pleasing Google and pleasing users. I've given whole presentations on that topic. And we should be very aware of that. And I think we are. I think quality SEO professionals know this risk. The kind of galaxy mind version, though, that I feel is so rarely picked up in cross-functional teams, in product organizations, we're getting there now with SEO embedded in more product organizations, is the realization that a user-centered change could actually hurt SEO performance. And I was speaking to someone the other day at a FTSE 100 company, very large British company, who was saying that the organization is actually scared of investing in SEO because they've been burned by previous initiatives, non-SEO initiatives, that damaged their organic search visibility and performance. But they didn't notice quickly enough. It took the debugging, the remedying, the fixing, took so long, took so much effort, cost them so much money, that they are, ironically, more nervous of this now, which is kind of the way around. I think the fact that you've seen that this critical, crucial channel can be damaged but inadvertently means you should be taking more care with it, if anything, investing more in sustaining what you have, building it, and improving your performance for the future, all of which is very aligned with where I started out at the top, saying that we need to be able to attribute those individual changes, those individual initiatives to the business outcomes that we see, and do that as quickly as possible, because we know now that it's possible to run controlled SEO tests and get this kind of data, see the uplift, see the business impact and results. But what folks have to realize is it's also possible that a winning conversion rate test, so something that improves the conversion rate of the site, can look like this in its impact on SEO visibility. And this was a minus 25% change in organic traffic, which is pretty horrific, huge business impact. And if you're not testing both, then you are not building an effective experimentation program. If these channels remain siloed in how they think about testing, you're not able to put this stuff together. So we talk about extending conversion rate optimization to SEO testing, putting those two together into what we call full funnel testing, which is where you get to test the conversion rate impact and the organic search impact of a particular change. And so you get these metrics that tell you the individual impacts on the different elements of the hypothesis in terms of, is this a good idea for users? Is it a good idea for Google? And then you get to combine that into an overall impact when you analyze and combine this all together. So it's a bit of a whistle-stop tour, but this is kind of the way that my thinking's been evolving into where I started at the top. How do we build the channel that we always wished we could have, which is an organic channel that behaves a little bit more like paid media, a bit more dollars in, dollars out, a lot more accountability, more performance, more explanatory power for what's working, and what we need to do differently. Ultimately, improved performance and improved narratives for that performance. So if you want to read more about this stuff, we've got some more at searchpilot.com. We've got a number of customer stories. We've got a new one coming soon, actually, for a local website with locations around the US that saw great impact from SEO testing around the organic search visibility of those different locations. So that one will be coming soon. If you want to get that when it's out and other resources, you can head to searchpilot.com/live, where we've got a number of things. We've got a link to these customer stories. We've got some documentation and information about how SEO testing works and the broad business case for it. We've got some links to individual SEO test results that we've run. Our whole backlog of test results is available on our website. And there's a link there where you can sign up to the email list, which means that you'll get those new test results as we publish them every couple of weeks in your inbox, along with obviously hearing when we have a new customer update, customer story that we can share with you. As I say, there's one coming soon. And if this is all interesting to you, if you're responsible for SEO, some of these targets, the P&L ideally, maybe you have some organic search targets at a large website, large organization, we'd love to speak to you in more detail about your SEO testing and experimentation program. If you head on over to searchpilot.com/live, there's also a form there where you can fill it in to get one of the team to reach out for a chat about what you're currently doing, how it could work better, whether there might be any way that we could support you. So thank you. If you want to see a live demo without speaking to anyone, head to searchpilot.com/demo. And yeah, I will be back hopefully next week, although I'm live at eTail on Tuesday, so it'll be on a different day. If you've got any questions in the meantime, hit me up. I'm at Will Critchlow on Twitter and LinkedIn. And this video is going out live to those two platforms as well as the SearchPilot YouTube channel. And yeah, you can find me in any of those places. My DMs are open. And I would love to hear your comments, thoughts, questions, things I could cover for next time. In the meantime, have a great Tuesday. Take care.